we have two kiddos in school, and they use IXL and AR, which for those who aren't familiar, that's a math online program and a reading online program. Quick hot take on 30 seconds, your feelings on...
I'm going to offend people.
Okay. Excellent. It makes good podcasting.
On my take on those?
Yeah.
I don't like them.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan.
I'm Anna.
And we are here to help families love God and use tech. Very excited to have Anna back. We did it in under 40 weeks this time. That's exciting.
It's very impressive.
By the way, this is us trying, so bear with us. Today, our conversation is actually going to be kind of digging deeper into this reset, renew, and applying it to us because I was struck by the realization that I come with these prepared talks. I have notes, I have research, and I do this, 35-minute monologue with the idea of getting as much information that's useful as possible. And then it makes it sound like I've got all the answers. Anna has all the answers. So today we're going to pop quiz Anna. She actually doesn't know what I'm going to ask her.
Right.
She just knows.
I don't have any answers.
She just knows that she's in front of a microphone. And we're going to run through it. So hopefully you'll get to hear that we are, in fact, incredibly fallible humans and hopefully bring some light into what does this actually look like to apply some of this in actual real working lives. So with no further ado, let's get this conversation started. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast, a resource for parents who are feeling outpaced and overwhelmed as they raise children in a tech world. As an educator, parent, and tech user, I want to equip parents with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to raise kids who love God and use tech. Thank you to everyone who has made this podcast possible. Thank you to everyone who is liking, who's rating, who's following, or subscribing, I guess is what they call it now, and who's sharing it with your friends and your family and your neighbors. That's incredible because it allows more families to hear the hope of the gospel as it applies to raising our children in a tech world, and it helps us reach more people because every time you do that, algorithms, math problems on the interwebs realize, hey, this person liked it and shared it with that person. Maybe this person would like it. So thank you for doing that. That helps us reach more families and reach this mission of helping families love God and use tech. Also, two cool updates. First cool update is that we are having more guests on, which is going to be super exciting. So I just wanted to kind of tease this out. We have amazing individuals coming. Our guest speakers will kind of be coming in once a month-ish, but really excited. If you have someone you'd like us to speak with, send me a note, nathan@gospeltech.net, or just DM us on social media. It's @LoveGodUseTech. And I would love to reach out to those individuals that you find encouraging, exciting, who can add to this conversation. Second is, very excitingly, our calendar is actually filling up. This is not something I've been able to say for the last year and a half, but we have talks basically booked through the beginning of May. So if you are interested in having myself or a gospel tech presentation at your church, at your school, your small group or homeschool co-op, we would love to get you on the calendar. If you would be so kind as to reach out if you're interested through our website, gospeltech.net. You can just go speaking or reach out directly to me, Nathan@gospeltech.net. We would love to get as many of those conversations going because we've seen them be so impactful and powerful for families, church communities to address this conversation of tech in hope. Not just how do we go out and fix our kids or fix technology, but how do we take the hope in the gospel and this idea that we have a greater hope and then use tech in light of that. As I like to tell the young people when I speak, that we're gonna help you use all of the tech that helps you love God more and none of the tech that takes you away from God. So with that, let's get on to today's conversation. So we are talking tech today. I guess in context for this conversation, as I mentioned in the intro, it can feel sometimes like this is a very prepared conversation. We have all the right answers and we just run right through it. And I want to kind of debunk that because, well, it's sort of like, when you go to church and they have that 3-minute share session where you like stand up and shake a neighbor's hand and you could be having the worst day of your life and someone turns and goes, "How are you?" And you're like, "Fine." But that's not true. And it's not just that you're a liar. It's also that this is just not the appropriate time or place to explain all of your life's ails in this moment. And I wanted to kind of make time for that the podcast can actually be great for conversation. So we have Anna here with us. And last week we talked about renew and reset. And in fact, full disclosure, I told you guys that I changed the name to Renew because I couldn't remember the 7 steps. And then I told Anna that, but I didn't actually tell her what Renew was. I was like, hey, I've got this new thing. And in our life, sometimes it gets busy. And it turns out that like when the kids are in bed and you finally have moment together, you don't want to talk about acronyms from work. Like that might surprise you, but that actually...
Nathan wants to talk about acronyms for work, and then I fall asleep on the couch.
There are those who don't want to talk about acronyms from work. That's true. I would talk about it all the time, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. But I'd also talk about a lot of things all the time. Sorry, guys. So let's talk right now. So Anna, you're here on a mic, pop quiz time. First is I mentioned reset last week. So for those uninitiated listeners, reset is how we answer the question, how do I know if my tech is healthy? And it's simply we look at does tech improve or impede our relationships and responsibilities, our enjoyment, our sleep, our emotions, and our time. So Anna, in the last, we're getting through winter, which tends to be a time when tech is more at use because we can't go outside. When's the time your reset alarm has gone off involving our children specifically?
Well, we have one who is really into the shows, and she's with a babysitter right now. But nearly every time she sees me, she just says the name of the show she wants to watch until I fold. So I think we're approaching an unhealthy really, I don't know. I struggle because it's a 20-minute like Daniel Tiger or a Wildcrats that she wants to watch.
Yeah.
Which is great. And then I can take a shower without her emptying my cupboards. But I also don't it feels like she's got the control.
Yeah.
I need to get that back from her.
Let's walk through that nuance because that is what I think most parents would say, especially parents that are at home with children of like, listen, like it's not a bad show. They're not doing it for hours. It's not a huge deal, but.
I think I don't like that I feel like she's reliant upon it. Sort of.
Reliant, and then you mentioned like the attitude piece, like that she sees you and then will just beat you down.
And she beats me down until I submit to her authority. And then it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to enforce that. I've been trying to do a little, because she does the same thing with, we are just listening, I'm sure, like the rest of most American parents, right? Or no, not just American. Everybody's listening to Encanto. Yeah. The music, and she's relentless with that also. And if
I've mentioned this in previous
turn that on, it's just she screams Encanto until we turn it on. So.
Yeah, which we're gonna get to what to do about it, but it is
the
concern.
reality.
The reality is there's nothing morally wrong with the music or with these shows. In fact, the 2 shows are quite good.
They're great, and actually, I'd like her to watch a little more Daniel Tiger because I think she could learn some good lessons from Daniel.
Yeah, like how to share. Thanks, Mr. Rogers.
Find a way to play together.
It's good for all of us, but at the same time, like it does, the reset alarm goes off. Man, I don't love the way that this is impacting your ability or the way she can't function. Like if she gets her brain on it, it's hard to get her to skip a track and get her back and just recognizing like, man, like this is fairly small, but
some of that is developmental. I think just where we had another child at that age who was very similar to that. So I think, and knowing where he is now, I think some of it is developmental. I'm making a huge guess, but just seen, like we've seen this before and now it's not a big deal.
Personality wise.
And like maybe just where their brains are of like the routine, and they really thrive in routine.
Okay. The other 2 though on tech?
It's just been cold and wet. And so I think we're watching I think this is every winter. We probably watch a little bit more TV than I was just thinking about that this morning. Like, oh, we need to like play a game, or like, I'd like to go for family walks after dinner. Like we've kind of just been home in the afternoons and the evenings. And they watch one Dude Perfect or one show. Friday nights we'll watch half of a movie maybe, or British. We've been watching the British Baking Show.
And we watch
20 minutes of that.
We split into thirds.
But I'm like, I just don't love when we fall into this pattern of every night we're watching something when I feel like, oh, we have other things we like to do together. And I default to that. I would pick TV because it's easy and I like to snuggle on the couch. But I also like to do the other thing. Like I know it's fun for them and good for them to do other things too. So I feel like we're starting to get to spring. I can see some hope, and I would like to push back on like, no, we can like spend 10 minutes reading together, or we can all go outside and we can try and hope that Hadley doesn't terrorize us during a game and we can play a game.
And I'd like to actually dig into that. Like, why not just cuddle on the couch and enjoy? Like, you like to do it. It's something you did growing up. So you have a lot of like nostalgia there, and the kids are willing. Like, why not? Like, yeah.
I think it's just the easiest option, and it requires the least amount of engagement from anybody. So not that there's not days for that, and when everyone's just spent and tired, or you're all invested in a show, like, I feel like there's totally times and places for that. I just don't like when it becomes the default, and then that's all they're kind of, again, we've got one who's more into it than the other one. Where it's like, that's kind of what the whole evening is driving towards, is like, I just am getting through everything else so that we can watch a show, or dessert and a show. Like, those are the goals. Like, can we get through dinner? Can we get through putting on jammies? Can we get through all this stuff so I can turn on a show and have a bowl of ice cream? Which, those things are fine. I just would like them to be like a treat instead of a regular. Like, we don't have ice cream every night, so it's a special thing instead of like, oh, I'm just expecting that I can hustle through family dinner time, or I can hustle through whatever. When we all like to play a game, or we like to go outside and throw the ball, or go for a walk or something.
Yeah, I think I just would love to pause on that, because I think that is like, moms and dads who are listening to this, when you have that little reset kind of alarm going off, like, man, something is off, and you're looking, right? That's enjoyment we're talking about, that we have a child whose enjoyment is often tethered to dessert and a show. And if that doesn't happen, like, it's very hard for this individual to feel joy and to feel happy. And that's what we're looking at, is, hey, like, this activity shouldn't be your source of joy. It's fun. It's great. It's wonderful, actually. We want to do this with you. But we also notice that there's this unhealthy reliance that you're skipping through other things. And then I love what you said with the watching a show is such a low bar default. And I would say that while I have fond memories of watching movies with our kids or watching a show, that when we do that repeatedly, I have a hard time picking out one time we did it from another. Whereas when we do distinct activities, when we go on a walk, when we have a conversation, when we play a game, it's much easier. Like, oh, that's right. Like, we did A and we did B, and we had that one funny thing that happened, and it gets more relational. But it does require more investment, which brings me to, I think I know what your answer is going to be. So that's kind of our Drool Tech use of things. But we have 2 kiddos in school, and they use IXL and AR, which, for those who aren't familiar, that's a math online program and a reading online program. Quick hot take on 30 seconds. Your feelings on...
I'm going to offend people.
Okay. Excellent. It makes good podcasting.
My take on those?
Yeah.
I don't like them.
Why?
I like, for the same reason, like, I think they would just rather do that sometimes than... okay. IXL, I feel a little bit like that one's been better, because I can set a 10-minute timer and say you get 10 minutes to practice your math facts. And I feel like math a lot is just like rote memorization. And when I've looked at, like, when I'm watching them do it, it looks very similar to like if they were doing the Scholastic workbook, like those kind of problems. And it is reward driven. They like their little tokens or whatever they get. It doesn't seem quite as reward driven as AR, both in the system, and school really rewards AR too.
Yeah.
So I guess I feel less passionately against IXL. It doesn't seem to have as many little like bells and whistles built in, because I don't feel like they're as reactive to, they can shut it off really fast, and it's not a big deal. AR I struggle with, and I don't know if it's partly because I'm an English major and I love reading and I want my kids to love reading. We've just seen it a little, like, they're just little. And I'm like, I don't want you to read because you're earning, I don't know. I know there's good, like, part of it is we're just going to build this habit of reading.
Right.
So I understand, because we're trying to build habits of reading. I just want them to be intrinsically motivated to read. And sometimes it does take a little encouragement. Like, we did a reading chart last year anyway, like on our own, of just like, you read 10 minutes 10 times, and then we'll go get ice cream, whatever, right? Like, just to try and build the habit of reading. They just can't shut off the stupid computer. They're like scanning, like, look at this animal, look at my trophy. And I'm like, it's not real. None of it is real. You don't actually get a trophy. There's no actual mouse that comes into your house you could play with. Like, there's just this pretend picture on a computer that you're excited about. And I get frustrated with that part of it. I love that it's like an easy reading comprehension. Like, it's a good check for us, like, to know one of our kids likes to just breeze through books and then take the test. And we're like, no, the point's not to just finish the book. You got to read and understand what you were doing. So I feel like that is a good check for them to make sure they're understanding the content, especially for their free reading that they're not tested on at school. I struggle with it.
I agree on especially what you just mentioned, that like we're now seeing one of them who's incredibly goal oriented and reward driven in just life. That's just the way he's wired. Then starts rushing his reading of these books that he could really enjoy, but he knows how many points they're worth and he knows what that's going to do. Like he's already doing the math.
He's so competitive, which again isn't bad. Like it was one of the reasons we sent him back to school this year is because he thrives on competition.
Yeah.
And so
he needs to see other people doing better.
Other people doing better than him, which is great. Like he feeds on that. But I think he knows like he's not the highest. He's a good reader. He's not the best reader in his class and he doesn't have the most points. And that he's motivated by that.
Yeah, he started getting what are the books? The Magic Treehouse. He started just churning through Magic Treehouse, which again, super cool because we know he's building vocab, we know he's getting reps, we know he's building really low stimulation focus time. But
what was the point of that question?
The point was IXL, Tool Tech. It's great in that we're seeing these really positive outcomes, but the negatives are. Yeah, but his motivation also, like he's not just being trained to read. He seems to also being trained to look for these external rewards. And when the external rewards are there, and I'll add this to what you just said. As a middle school teacher for a decade, I saw a ton of 8th graders who came in with really high reading levels coming from 6th grade. And then in 5th grade, it dropped 18 months of reading. And then by 8th grade, or in 7th grade, it dropped. So they came in 6th, and let's say they were reading at 9th grade level.
Well, because they do AR kindergarten through 6th grade, and then you go to junior high and it drops.
And it's not there.
There's nothing like why.
And I'd get 8th graders.
They don't have any reason to read anymore because you've trained them.
Yep, who lost a couple years and they had all the skill set and they go, well, I can read this. I just don't want to now. And they had been so trained to pursue that external reward. Yeah. We had nothing to support that. And all of a sudden they're wondering why this reading is really hard for them. And why is this a struggle? And it looks a lot like if you've ever seen young people as athletes, like who start as a 6-year-old and burn out in middle school or high school, like they've put in so many reps, they know they're so good, and now it's hard, and everyone else is catching up, and it's not so cool, and they don't have all the medals and all the accolades and all the attention. So
I'm wondering, I feel like this is just to put a little pin in this, but
okay, go ahead.
Maybe our kids don't go to the same school district that you taught in.
That's true.
I'm wondering what their junior high does to support reading, and we know somebody who works there. Maybe we can ask about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious because it does feel like that's a big push through 6th grade, and then it drops off, and now... Like, do we have anything that is encouraging reading
we can ask.
In the upper grade levels?
It'd be an interesting, I guess, conversation to continue. So those are just some pieces I wanted to get for your thoughts so that people could hear a little bit of how we're processing this as well, especially on the reset side. But I also want to get to the renew side. And I want, Anna, again, everyone has not heard what renew stands for.
I feel like I'm kind of on like a surprise talk show.
Yeah, right.
It's really exciting.
Hey, we brought out your high school coach. So here's what we've got for Renew, for those who maybe haven't heard the last one.
People are like, what's wrong with your high school coach?
Nothing. It was amazing. It was a fantastic experience. Moving along.
Which one?
That's true. That's right. Nobody knows what we're talking about. So we had Renew. So again, reset is how we answer the question, how do we know if it's healthy? But then we need action points. And as I mentioned last week, we went from these 7 steps that felt kind of enigmatic. They weren't bad. They were hard to remember too. This idea of renew. So if reset is the talk it out part of like, I need to know if there is a problem, renew is the walk it out. This is the practical steps part. So it starts with, tell me what you think. And these are supposed to be done in order in my mind, Anna. I would love to know your thoughts.
Okay, on the renew process.
On the renew process. So first thing I would say, if a family comes to me and goes, hey, we've done the reset, we know we've got a 1 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5.
We have a little problem.
We've got a problem, and we're specific. Let's just stay with kids for now because I don't need you turning that reset barrel towards me yet. Maybe we could think on that towards the end. Remove. First is remove tech from rooms and from family meals.
Okay.
Thoughts, reflection.
Oh, so if somebody says we have a little problem, we're at least a 1 out of 5 on the reset. What should we do first?
First thing we just say is, hey, is your
get
tech...
it out of the bedroom and get it out of meals.
And specifically Drool Tech, right? You can have an alarm clock, but you don't need a smartphone. You can...
I mean, yeah, I feel like you don't even need to really nuance that because I don't think anyone's really struggling with their tool tech in the bedroom.
No, but they're going to try to argue that Drool Tech might be tool tech, right? And they're gonna try to push back on that. So
yeah, I think no, you don't have any laptops, you don't have any Kindles, you have nothing that can get on the internet.
Yeah,
is in a bedroom.
Yeah.
No TV. I mean, TVs are for the most part all smart TVs too now, right?
Yeah, and they're next to impossible to keep accountable.
So all of that is out of the bedroom for a million reasons, and I think you've talked about that in other podcasts. But I think that's great. And then meals also. Even if that's only 20 minutes, like we don't sit at the table very long. We have little kids. I feel like a 20-minute meal is long for us to be sitting at the table.
Yes, for those of you not in America, that may sound horrendous. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a fairly standard U.S. meal time. But yeah, we do bolt our food.
We eat really fast, and then we do try and make the boys sit at the table and have a little bit of a conversation. But eliminating tech, I think, from both those places is a really great starting place. And I think if it's not something you're doing regularly, it's going to be really painful. So it's a good spot to...
So maybe set like we're going to do a family meal this day.
Sure, even try one meal. We're going to start just dinner. Let's start with dinner. And then the other meal, we'll work up towards every time we have a meal, we'll try and be screen-free at every meal.
Yeah.
Would maybe be the goal.
Okay. So then, all right. So we say, all right, do that. And they're like, hey, we're doing that. We still have this issue. The second thing I'd say is, all right, now is where we gave you a practical. Now we're going to go practical with the gospel. And we do it in 4 areas. And listeners, I'm actually going to dig a little deeper this time because I didn't give you these verses last week, I don't believe. But first, we're going to equip the gospel standard to our content. So first is we have a standard for love. If we look at 1 Corinthians 13:4, talks specifically, love is, and that's where we get the patient and kind. We have a standard for our actions, how we interact with our content. Galatians 5:22, where it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. And we have a biblical standard for our focus when using our technology. Like, what are we setting our brains on? What are we ingesting and celebrating as good and praiseworthy? And Philippians 4:8 talks about that there is actually a standard for what we should be giving our hearts to. So that'd be our first piece, Anna. First thing to say, hey, check your content based on a biblical standard.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And again, I think that's something we like to pretend doesn't impact us. I feel like I just keep seeing places and being reminded of the "we become what we behold" quote, and I'm forgetting who says that, but I think just in our culture, we're so saturated with content, and we've been so told it doesn't matter, right? It's all for my entertainment, everything's for my consumption, but it really does impact our hearts. And I think we see that with our kids too. And, we've talked about that, like different shows that they watch. Like, are these shows modeling the ways we want our kids to talk to each other? Or a great coach I had used to always ask us, would you have had those people over for dinner, or would you let people in your home talk the way that the people on the TV are talking, or in that video game or whatever, like on whatever the platform is, like, but would you, back in 2000, it was the people on TV, would you let them talk like that in your house? Like, well, probably not. Like, that wouldn't be allowed in our home to be crass like they are. So I think that's a good good test.
And then it ties in with, all right, well, let's say it's not content, it's Daniel Tiger. Content is a problem, but what about the time? And this idea that there is no such thing as free time. As a believer, right, we understand that our time is not our own. So 1 Corinthians 10:23 talks about how everything's permissible, but not everything is constructive. And Ephesians 4:1 references us specifically as prisoners of the Lord, which I love that imagery because it actually came up on Sunday. This idea that in Christ, we are absolutely free, But that doesn't mean we're free to do whatever we want. We're only free to do what the Lord tells us and directs us to do. And so this conversation on time being, hey, child, we have this reset issue. It's not a content issue now. It's not that you're getting distracted in your room and building unhealthy habits. It might just be, hey, this is an unhealthy amount of time.
You're spending so much time on this thing. Is that the problem? Like,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about your just amount of time you're dedicating to this thing.
Yep, which I would actually tie in with the next one. So let me pair that in here too, because sometimes it's not even just the time, like, hey, you're only doing a show a day,
Right.
daughter of mine, right?
Yeah.
But her attitude, right? Her desires and her joy, or even the other child we mentioned, right? We look at Luke 6:45 where it says, out of the heart come our actions. And from the good stored up inside comes the good that we do. And we recognize, hey, your attitude is off.
Yeah, those two seem like they would go hand in hand for me. Like, if you're spending a lot of time there, then it's probably because I'm getting a lot of joy out of
Yeah, or if you're
that thing.
if you're not satisfied with the amount of time we've got, is the other one. Like,
Or
hey,
I'm
we
really
set a timer.
unhappy. It could be the flip. I'm really unhappy with what's actually going on in my life.
Right.
And so I'm going to spend all this time. Right. It's one or the other typically of this is where I'm getting my joy when I'm watching this show or playing this game, whatever. Or I'm really sad or hurt or depressed. And so it's easier to go live online.
Sure. And that would be where, so families listening to this idea, when we talk renew, we remove tech from our rooms and from our meal time so we can be present and rest. We equip with this gospel standard for our content, our time, our attitudes. And in doing that, we are actively now looking for, hey, is tech the problem we're dealing with? Or is there another problem that's causing our child to run to tech?
Yeah.
Right? Is there another unhealthy, and we've referenced this before as the idea of a pebble or a blister. Is there just something we have to pull out of the shoe and move on with life? Or is there something that's hurting and raw and needs more treatment and more focus? So attitude, and then we can deal with trust in the area that all of our tech is an opportunity for faithfulness and having that conversation with our kid. Luke 16:10 is the verse I use for this. So whoever's faithful with much will be trusted with much, and that tech is one of those areas where, hey, we can show the Lord our faithfulness in loving him through our tech, and in looking at a gospel standard for digital trust, that we trust our kids, that we have certain expectations. We're going to trust and verify. So there will be some accountability, which is our next piece. But does that seem, when we talk about applying the gospel in a way that any family can do, that we don't have to be theologians, we don't have to be tech professionals?
Yeah, I think those, somebody might disagree, but I think that those seem really accessible and like good check-ins of, okay, here are the big things and what we can do. I like the trust one too. I feel like our kids are obviously little with their tech use, but even I feel like that applies to any parenting thing, right? Like, you don't get to drive the car until you have to prove trust in a million other ways.
Right.
And then if you've done that, you get to drive the car. And when you make a mistake, you could lose that opportunity also. Like,
not because we're mad at you, but because you're not safe.
Right. I feel like it's all just
situation.
right? Like, we were teachers and coaches, but a lot of it is just like, here's X, Y, and Z. And when you do this is the consequence. And it's not, I'm not reacting out of anger. I might be disappointed or frustrated, certainly, but we set out this plan ahead of time. You didn't follow the plan. This is the consequence. And then here's how you earn it back. Like,
right. There's always that step for restoration and bringing back in, which brings us to network accountability. And this is the trust but verify aspect of this, where in Renew, we have the remove and we have equip, and now we are network accountability, using something to make sure that that trust is actually happening. So parents, this is a great way to not spy on our children, because spying destroys trust. It's impossible to be spying on our children and prying into their private lives. If we are giving them these digital means, we need to accept this idea that they're going to be acting on their own will, and that will is going to be directed by God's Holy Spirit.
It's also one reason, though, why we say wait.
It's also a major reason.
As long as you can. Because
for smartphones specifically.
Yes. Like, there's no... I'm like, are you kidding? Like, our kids are 8 and 6. You have no privacy. Everything you do, I'm going to know about. Yeah. And if I don't know, I'm going to find out.
Right. That's true. For that age group, but this is based on that standard of we believe, trust, and verify, and we don't believe an 8-year-old should be trusted with the digital version of a loaded gun. There's just way too much harm that could happen from this. So
I don't trust him. He likes to come out and do the bike. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing out there? I'm going to come look. Every 10 minutes I'm out here like, are you really doing that? Are you stretching? What are you doing?
And we get there's a history on that we can go back and check.
Right.
And,
But just I don't even trust you to go get the mail. I'm looking out the window. What do you do? I don't trust. I mean, and he's very reliable, but
he is. And occasionally punches his brother in the face.
I feel like
Just because he's 8.
I'm going to be in your business because it's my job.
Yep. And so there's parents, some resources we'll link to, but Covenant Eyes, Bark, Circle, Griffin. These are things that help us accountable. And what that means is it's not a gotcha moment. I'm not equipping you so that you can get your kid and prove in the court of law that they made a mistake and it's on them. But instead, it gives you the talking point. So now you can take the image, website, search history, conversation, and go to them and say, son or daughter, I love you, right?
I saw that this popped
I
up.
saw that this came up. Could you tell me about that?
I feel like this is the digital equivalent when we were kids. If you're of our generation, anytime we went anywhere in high school, especially, it'd be like, just remember, somebody in this town knows who you are. Or especially it was because it was cool to have your last name on your sweatshirts,
Yep.
Don't wear that sweatshirt with your last name on it when you're going to go TP somebody. Like, don't let somebody see, like somebody,
Soul.
it would say like, don't be doing something stupid at the mall with your team hoodie on with your last name on the back. Like somebody's going to know who you are and they're going to call, which I don't think ever would have happened, but like in my head, I think we were told like they will call the high school and they will let you know.
Oh, I think it's happened more than twice.
That fear,
especially in the age of the internet where someone shows up in a picture holding a drink.
Yes,
and they've got their
absolutely.
team sweatshirt on.
But I believed that it could have happened in 1999.
Right.
So I feel like this is kind of that digital equivalent of like somebody is going to see you. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing is nothing.
Although there's a lot of shame.
So much shame. But it was good accountability of just like, you're not anonymous. You are a part of this. Like you are, again, it goes back to the verse of like, you're not your own.
Right. And that there's a reason. So this isn't just don't step on a line and embarrass us.
Right. It's not that, but just like I think that especially on the internet, it feels so anonymous and no one's ever going to see this or know what I did. And shame comes in that too of thinking like, then if you do make a mistake, it feels like I can't ever tell anybody about this because it's so horrifying.
Right, which is, I think, the huge part, which is this next piece of, all right, we've got accountability, but accountability is only useful if there's a relationship. And that idea of, so the next E is establish family rhythms. And there's 4 of them.
We're still on the thing.
We're still in a renew. We're still in the middle of a renew.
I really lost the acronym in there.
Is it too much? This is why I'm running you through it and why I wanted people to hear it.
I am not a good auditory learner.
You got to see it.
So I need to see it. And you have not said the letters very often. You just heard renew and then.
Okay. So it's remove tech from rooms and
that's
meals.
the first R.
Yep. That's the first R.
The only R.
But also the first one. Equip with the gospel in those 4 areas. And that might be where I lost you was content,
that was so
time.
many things. Yeah.
It is a lot. I think maybe like a Canva visual for this. This might be a.
Yeah, that's fine. The equip. Right. I just lost
all right. Then it's the N was the network accountability.
Okay.
That's the N for when they're saying, hey, what should we do? We remove, we equip. We have network accountability. Then we establish family rhythms.
Okay, so that's the second E.
It's the second E, and it's super far down the list because family rhythms are awesome, but those other things are really tangible, practical, and you can do them tonight. You could get the R, the E, and the N.
Sure, and if you have no foundation of the gospel for any of your content, then that makes it hard. Like, who cares if we're having family dinner if I'm watching...
Insert the blank.
Yeah.
Yes. If this is just, we have no standard for saying, hey, that was unhelpful, unhealthful.
Yeah. And it's not my standard. It's God's standard.
It's God's standard.
Love that too, to be like, this is, sorry. God said it.
Mom and dad, by the way, that means our shows have to fit into that. So there are shows that adults are like, well, I'm an adult. I can handle this content. And I would push back on that and say, all right, based on the Bible though. And instead what we could do is establish these. So in family rhythms, we're going to get meals. You're going to establish play. You're going to establish your tech expectations. Like you're going to put tech in a place. You're going to determine where it is in your home, where it is in your schedule. This is where that family tech framework, if you go gospeltechworkshop.com, you'll see that. And you can build a family calendar. So we're actually got a kind of burgeoning friendship, I would say, with a group called Loam. If you just go withloam.com.
How do you spell Loam?
Loam is Lome. And Riley is one of the co-founders there, and what they've made is a family calendar. And you can get on there and basically build this calendar together in a really accessible, non-just Outlooky way, but in a way that allows the kids to kind of have a visual for this is what our family looks like. These are our family priorities. We're going to eat together. We're going to play together. We're going to use our tech intentionally, and we're going to make sure that it's on a calendar because we live in America in 2022, and that's something we're going to have to do if it's going to happen, because we will plan for our most important things. All right, our sports tournaments are on the calendar, our vacations are on the calendar, and these things need to be there if we're serious about having healthy tech and about doing that in a gospel-centered way, which brings us to the W of Renew.
Okay.
The last one is we're going to make wonder-focused adventures.
Analog adventures.
And specifically analog adventures. This wonder focus being, we're going to focus on things that that draw them out of themselves, that draw them beyond just, is this enjoyable to me, right? Some of it might be what we call type 2 fun that takes, it's fun that takes work, right? Like a family hike. It's
type
not
2 fun.
It's type 2 fun. It's not always fun the entire time. Like, so I would say this, type 2 fun is best initiated in things that you love to do. So grandma and papa, mom and dad, if you love fishing, right? That's type 2 fun. You got to get up early. You got to make a plan. It's usually cold. You sit a long time.
Some people, that's type 1 fun.
I think for the adult, it can be type 1 fun. Kids can be trained for it to have type 1, but you take a kid for the first time to go fishing, a lot of them will complain. It's not convenient. It's not fast. The fish smells bad. I think that animal just died. Like there's a lot of trauma that goes with that, but it's a really valuable relational piece. And yes, now our boys
I feel
go
like one of your board members is going to be horrified by that. Like, then we're doing it wrong.
We're doing it wrong. But I mean, our boys with Papa, right? They love fishing with Papa. They now think that is type 1 fun. They get up, they go to Denny's afterwards. Like it's amazing, right? But that was work to get there, and Papa invested that. And so I think that'd be the first thing is get your kids to love things you love to do. I love to get our kiddos out cycling.
I feel like you have to push on that a little bit because sometimes your kids don't love to do what you love to do, and you need to be flexible.
So that was the first one, though.
Okay.
I'm just trying to say, like, you're modeling for them. Your kids may hate it, right? My boys, they may not love cycling. That's okay. But I'm going to get out and show, hey, here's something Dad loves to do. We're going to go do this together. And then the second is we're going to plan activities that just include awe in general. So that's where we go to the ocean and go to the trees and go to the mountains and we get out to things that are bigger than us. We look at the stars. Right?
What if you live somewhere where those things, like we live in a spot where we can access.
We do live in the
We're
Northwest.
very spoiled to
it's
get
one
to
of the
the
few
ocean,
things that's
the
good
trees
about it here.
and the mountains very quickly.
I think
What if
anything
you
that
live somewhere flat?
Oh, Texas, we're looking at you guys. Man,
What do you guys do? What do you do down there?
What do you do? Okay, yeah, when you have, what are those little biting bugs called down there?
I don't know.
Starts with the CH, and I never want to say it. Starts with the CH. We don't have them around here, but they sound awful.
They're like little ticks.
Yeah, and it mixed with a mosquito. So if you have those things and you live somewhere flat, I would say you still get out and you do an activity together, right? And maybe that is go play a game. Like you can go play baseball, soccer, frisbee. Like you can go do a thing, even if there's not a physical feat to do together. And it's warm enough to be outside at night where you live. So go look at those stars because that's not something we can do 9 months a year here. But that idea of activities that bring awe, and if you have to travel somewhere, do it. Finally, you can look for those ways to try new things. So yes, focus on your children's passions and interests, the way they've been gifted, and push on that. Like just because they're good at this sport doesn't mean they shouldn't try failing at this other thing. And I know that I like to stay where I'm comfortable and that our children, specifically one of them, really likes to be around what he's good at. But this idea of making wonder-focused analog adventures, it's part of the tech framework. If you guys want some help brainstorming how to do this, there's multiple steps in doing that well. But that's our acronym for Renew.
You want to say them one more time?
Let's say it one more time. So Renew, when you go, hey, we've done a reset. We know we've got a problem. First step, remove tech from bedroom and from meals. Second is apply a gospel standard. Equip is the way I used it to make the...
You got to use the acronym.
I'm sorry. Equip the gospel standard to your content, your time, your attitude. And Renew. And trust. Then you're going to establish network accountability. Right, so we've gone through the list. Now we need to have a network accountability that's loving and intentional. We establish family rhythms in our meals, play, tech, and our calendar.
It should be tech expectations.
Let's think about that. All right. And then we end with wonder-focused adventures. This idea of going out and having fun together and having fun intentionally, and sometimes it's even type 2 fun, but it's important. I think it's important to sometimes learn how to work for our fun. That's great. So
I don't disagree with you. It just sounds like a weird
type 2 fun?
type 2 fun.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I feel like Doug's going to hate that.
Oh, is he?
That's who he's saying. Like, that's type 1 fun for Doug. Board member Doug is not going to be happy with your type 2 fun.
That's probably true. That's
He
true.
would just say, these are things that kids should know how to do.
That's true. I don't
Like,
disagree with that.
yeah.
But I recognize that when your child
But I think
doesn't
that's-
hop out of bed and like, yeah,
Those
we're
are
gonna
like how I feel
chop
like people
wood.
are just different. Like, those things are not type 1 fun for you. They are type 1 fun for Doug.
That's true. And your dad.
And my dad likes to do that stuff
Your
too.
dad's like, hey,
You're
can
an
I come
indoor fun kind of guy.
I'm an indoor fun. I'm
They're
a
an-
Jacob, not an Esau.
They're an outdoor fun kind of guy.
Let's just be clear on that. Sometimes
It's
I can
okay.
grow
I'm
a
an
beard.
indoor fun person too.
Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of Renew, and families our hope in sharing that is that those feel accessible. I just, in talking with Anna and hearing her thoughts, it makes me think I'm going to make a visual for this so that
I
it's
don't
really easy.
listen.
We might even do that today, folks. So by the
I
time you
just
hear this,
don't
it'll be
learn
well
things when I have to
underway.
hear them.
So I do want to pop quiz reset. Anything on you looking at my life where you're like, hey, reset alarms? I asked you for the kids, but then I realized I kind of dodged that. and
Reset.
Threw my kids under the bus.
You're not
tech
going to
alarms
like my answer.
Uh-oh. I think I know what it is just because you said that.
What is it?
Is it my calories?
It's so annoying.
Oh no, why did I ask?
The part that's annoying is that you do it right after
I
the
know.
meal in front of the kids, and they don't know what you're doing, and sometimes it takes you a long time to put in. Nathan's trying to be healthy.
Yeah, so on that, I'm not trying to like lose weight, everyone.
You were trying to lose weight.
I'm trying to eat like an athlete, not like a 40-year-old dad. So instead of my life being
Making
made
us
up.
all feel great about ourselves.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I eat chicken nuggets and the leftover grilled cheese sandwich,
I know.
and that becomes like a way of life
I
instead
would
of
say
eating on
that
purpose.
because I've already talked about once because you were doing it constantly and
Yeah.
constantly talking about it. And like, I don't want our kids to be weirded. They shouldn't even know what calories are.
That's
Just
true.
eat food. But you still are just taking so long to put it in after. And they'll
So
be
what
like,
would
Dad. And you're just like putting in your calories. Like, just wait until they're gone or go
So
to the
wait
bathroom.
till, like, bedtime?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Better.
I'm
hard to
glad I
bring those
asked.
things up.
I'm glad I asked. I'm glad you were all here to hear us process that. But so doing it still, but doing it at times away from kids so they're not seeing me just staring at my phone, wondering what's dad doing on his phone.
Yes,
Why is
because
he?
it's hard to split your attention between.
I don't split my
You
attention.
don't. Most of us don't. And then I feel like if you're going to do it, then I can't remember who said this. Maybe it was Andy Crouch.
Okay.
Was like, you need to say to whoever is in the room, excuse me for a minute, I'm going to be entering my calories into my calorie app, and then we can resume this conversation. Or if you're checking a text, like I feel like it's just social courtesy to say
Here's what I'm going to do.
here's what I'm doing on my phone. I'm not just ignoring you.
And I'll check back in as soon as this
As soon as
task
I'm
is
done, I want to talk to you or do whatever, but I need to respond to this person or whatever it is.
If you would please pardon me, I'm randomly scrolling the internet for things more interesting than you.
Yeah, because you
Please
don't know
hold.
what the person is doing. So that's what it feels like, is like you're just scrolling through whatever while I'm over here doing nothing.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It's a bad feeling. It feels so
Do you want
important.
to tell
when
me
you're
if I have anything?
on it. Dude,
Go ahead.
Nathan, go ahead. I dare you. No, I think you've been really intentional with, like, it was taking your nap time, like your rest time when Hadley's napping was like, oh, I'll watch a show. And then it became like an hour of show. And then you were super stressed out. But I think shows you love. So you're getting your enjoyment and you're not relying on your husband to watch them with you, which is great.
And I don't watch him for an hour anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like they're not keeping you up late. Like you're able to get up on time. Like you've been doing your morning plan for like, I'm getting up, I'm doing a quiet time. Like, no, I have not had any bells going off for an unhealthy reset for you.
I eliminated my shopping apps.
Yes, I think that was helpful. I think that's recent. We'll check back in a week or two. Maybe that'll be another episode.
They're still gone.
Sorry, they're still gone. But all right. Well, that's important to have these conversations, everyone. And I hope that this gave you the courage to maybe ask, because it usually helps to ask first rather than just show up and truth bomb people. So I hope
Did
this
you just ask me that question so you could say what you wanted to say about my reset?
No, because I didn't have anything about your reset.
I didn't know if it was a trick.
No, when you were talking about the kids, I was like, I've talked to parents before about like this. Actually, just last week, I was like, with specifically wives married to husbands who love video games, that reset is the way into that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But that there has to be vulnerability, and you can't just come out with, again, truth bombing, because most gamers know why they do it. They have 100 reasons why it's more valuable than other things. So if you're listening to this, thank you still. Thank you for joining us. You can send any questions you've got to nathan@gospeltech.net, or you can reach out through, again, social media to @LoveGodUseTech on both Facebook and Instagram. Please share this with your friends, your family, people on social media. It does help us reach others. And join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we can love God and use tech.